The spaceship hummed softly as it approached the blue and green planet. Inside, Hannah adjusted her research collar, her fingers tracing the smooth metallic surface nervously. Earth looked nothing like her home world. It was messy, complicated, and filled with so many colors that her eyes struggled to process the visual information. Hannah was not an ordinary researcher. She was the youngest xenobiologist ever selected by the Crichton Scientific Council to study human reproduction. Most of her colleagues thought the assignment was a joke. Humans were considered primitive, emotional, and completely unpredictable by her people. Their reproduction methods were rumored to be chaotic and inefficient. As the ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Hannah reviewed her mission parameters. She had 3 primary objectives: observe human reproductive processes, document their biological methods, and create a comprehensive report that would help her species understand these strange beings. The landing was smooth. California's Silicon Valley Research Center appeared before her, a collection of glass buildings that reflected the bright sunlight. Humans moved around like tiny ants, each seemingly lost in their own world. Some walked while staring at small rectangular devices. Others moved in groups, talking and laughing. A human representative waited at the entrance. His name tag read Dr. Park, and he wore a white lab coat that seemed both professional and slightly wrinkled. Hannah noticed how different he looked from the perfectly pressed uniforms of Crichton scientists. "Welcome to Earth," Dr. Park said, extending his hand. Hannah hesitated. She knew about human greeting rituals but found physical contact uncomfortable. On her world, communication happened through carefully controlled energy signals. Touching was considered invasive and unnecessary, but protocol demanded she respect human customs. She reached out and shook his hand. Warm, slightly damp, unexpected. "I am Hannah," she responded, her language translator converting her native speech into perfect English. "I am here to study human reproduction." Dr. Park smiled. It was a strange human expression that seemed to involve multiple facial muscles. "Quite a complex topic you've chosen," he said. "Are you prepared for what you'll discover?" Hannah did not understand the hidden meaning in his question. Her training had prepared her for scientific observation. Emotions and complexities were not part of her research methodology. She was here to collect data, not to understand feelings. The research center was a maze of laboratories, offices, and study rooms. Humans moved with a sense of purpose that both impressed and confused Hannah. They seemed to work in unpredictable patterns, sometimes collaborating, sometimes working alone, their interactions driven by something more than pure logic. Dr. Park led her to a large room filled with medical equipment. Charts about human development covered the walls. Diagrams showed complex biological processes that looked nothing like the clean, controlled reproduction methods of her own species. "We'll start with basic biological information," Dr. Park explained. "Our reproduction is a fascinating mix of biological, emotional, and social processes." Hannah's scientific mind was already processing the information. She had hundreds of questions. How did humans choose their reproductive partners? What determined genetic selection? How did they manage the incredible complexity of growing another human inside a biological container? Her first day on Earth would be the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life, reproduction, and what it meant to be a living, thinking creature. Little did Hannah know that her research would do more than just document human reproduction. It would transform her understanding of life itself. The computer screen flickered with rows of data. Hannah's eyes moved quickly, absorbing information about human reproduction that seemed more like a complex puzzle than a scientific process. Around her, the research center buzzed with quiet activity. Dr. Park watched her work, his expression a mix of curiosity and amusement. Hannah did not notice. Her attention was fully focused on the medical records spread across multiple screens. Each file told a different story of human life creation. On her homeworld, reproduction was a controlled event. Genetic material was carefully selected. Embryos were developed in perfect, sterile chambers. Traits were chosen with mathematical precision. Emotions played no role in the process. But humans were different. So very different. She clicked through a file about a woman named Unji. The medical record showed her entire pregnancy journey. There were unexpected changes in body chemistry, hormonal shifts that seemed almost chaotic, biological markers that fluctuated without clear patterns. "This is impossible," Hannah muttered to herself. Dr. Park heard her. "What seems impossible?" he asked, walking closer. Hannah pointed at the screen. "Your reproductive process lacks systematic control. Look at these hormone levels. They change constantly. On my world, such variations would be considered a critical failure." He chuckled. "What you see as a failure, we see as adaptability." The next set of documents made Hannah even more confused. Genetic testing showed variations that would never be allowed in crudden reproduction. Some humans had genetic markers for potential health issues, yet they were still allowed to reproduce. In her world, such individuals would be immediately removed from the reproduction pool. Perfection was the only acceptable outcome. Dr. Park seemed to read her thoughts. "Humans value diversity," he explained. "Our differences make us stronger, not weaker." Hannah's research continued. She discovered something called fertility treatments. These were methods humans used when natural reproduction became difficult. Instead of eliminating individuals with reproductive challenges, humans created complex medical solutions. One document showed a process called in vitro fertilization. Doctors took reproductive cells, combined them outside the human body, and then carefully placed the developing embryo inside a woman's body. It was messy. It was complicated. It was beautiful in its own strange way. She found records of surrogate pregnancies, women who carried children for others who could not do so themselves. The emotional complexity of such an act was beyond Hannah's current understanding. Why would someone carry a child that is not genetically their own? She asked Dr. Park. "Kindness," he responded simply. "Love, the desire to help others." These words meant nothing in her scientific language. Kindness was not a measurable variable. Love was not a data point. By the end of her first week, Hannah had collected thousands of pages of medical records. Each document challenged her understanding of life and reproduction. Humans were not perfect. Their bodies were not perfectly controlled machines. They were something else entirely. Messy, complicated, unpredictable, and somehow remarkably successful. As night fell over the research center, Hannah continued her work. Her mission was no longer just about collecting data. Something deeper was happening. She was beginning to see humans not as research subjects, but as something more. Her people would never believe what she was discovering. The interview room was small and warm. Soft light came through large windows. Hannah sat across from J1 and Yuri, a human couple expecting their first child. Her recording device was ready. Her notebook was open, but nothing could prepare her for what she was about to learn. J1 spoke first. His hands were clasped together, fingers intertwined. "We tried for 3 years to have a baby," he said. His voice was soft but strong. Yuri reached out and touched his hand. The simple gesture made Hannah uncomfortable. On her world, physical contact during serious discussions was not allowed, but humans seemed to find comfort in touch. "We went through many tests," Yuri explained. "Fertility treatments, emotional ups and downs. It was not easy." Hannah's scientific mind wanted to ask about the medical procedures, but something else caught her attention. The way they looked at each other, the way their emotions seemed to flow between them like an invisible energy. "Why did you want a child?" Hannah asked. Her question was direct. On her world, reproduction was a calculated decision, not an emotional choice. J1 smiled. It was a complicated expression that seemed to carry many meanings. "Because we love each other," he said. "We want to create something together, something that is part of both of us." Love. Again, that word that meant nothing in Hannah's scientific language. Yuri continued. "Every child is a hope, a chance to make the world better, to share what we know, to help another human grow and learn." Hannah wrote down their words, but writing could not capture the emotion in the room. The hope, the fear, the excitement. She learned about something called pregnancy journey. It was not just a biological process. It was an experience that changed everything about a human's life. J1 talked about how he had changed, how he was learning to be a father even before the child was born. I read books, he said. I went to classes. I listened to advice from my parents and friends. I want to be ready. Ready for what? Hannah wondered. On her world, parents were assigned specific roles. Tasks were distributed. Emotions were controlled. Yuri showed Hannah an ultrasound picture, a small blurry image that seemed to mean everything to them. "This is our baby," she said. Her eyes were bright. "Can you see the little hands?" Hannah looked. To her, it was just a medical image, a collection of developing cells. But to J1 and Yuri, it was something magical. They talked about names, about hopes, about fears, about the world they wanted to create for their child. Each word was a new piece of information for Hannah. Humans did not just create children. They created entire worlds of possibility. As the interview ended, Hannah felt something strange. Her scientific training told her to ignore it. But it was there, a feeling she could not explain. Something that looked almost like wonder. Outside the interview room, the world continued. Humans moved about their day, unaware that a small conversation had just changed an alien researcher's understanding of life itself. The hospital corridors were bright and busy. Hannah walked carefully, her research pad clutched tight against her chest. Dr. Park had arranged something unexpected. She would spend a full week shadowing medical professionals, watching human reproduction up close. Her first stop was the maternity ward. The sounds were strange. Machines beeped. People moved quickly. Nurses spoke in calm, soft voices. Everything felt alive and unpredictable. A young doctor named Minho approached her. "Ready for your observation?" he asked. Hannah nodded. Her species did not show excitement, but inside, her scientific curiosity was burning bright. They entered a large room with several beds. Medical equipment surrounded each patient. Minho explained the different stages of human pregnancy care. Hannah listened carefully, her recording device capturing every word. "We monitor multiple things," Minho said. "Not just the physical health of the mother and baby, but also their emotional state." This confused Hannah. On her world, emotions were not part of medical care. They were considered unnecessary distractions. A woman lay in one of the beds. She looked tired but happy. Monitors showed her baby's heartbeat. The rhythm was not perfect. It changed. It moved. It was alive in a way that scared and fascinated Hannah. Her baby is not following the expected pattern, Hannah noted, pointing at the monitor. Minho smiled. "That's normal," he explained. "Every human is different. Every pregnancy is unique." Unique, another concept that made no sense in Croydon science. Later that day, Hannah watched a fertility treatment. Doctors worked with extreme care. They used complex machines. They checked tiny cells under microscopes. But it was not like the perfect, controlled process of her own world. Human reproduction was messy. It was complicated. It involved so many variables that it should not work. And yet, it worked perfectly. In another room, Hannah saw something that changed everything. A premature baby, very small, was being cared for. Tiny machines helped the baby breathe. Nurses watched carefully. But what surprised Hannah most was the human touch. A nurse held the baby's tiny hand. She spoke softly. "You're strong," she told the tiny human. "You can do this." Hannah's scientific mind could not understand. How could talking to a baby help its medical condition? There was no logical explanation. On her last day of observation, Hannah watched a challenging birth. A woman named Soo-jin was having difficulty. The room was full of tension. Doctors and nurses worked together like a single machine. They were calm. They were focused. Hours passed. Hannah watched every moment. The unpredictability was shocking. So many things could go wrong. And yet, humans faced each challenge with remarkable calm. Finally, a cry broke the tension. A new human entered the world. Su-jin held her baby. Tears ran down her face. The doctors smiled. Nurses congratulated everyone. Hannah's recording pad fell from her hands. Something was happening to her, something her scientific training could not explain. She was beginning to see humans not as a research subject, but as something more, something wonderful. The hospital room was quiet. Machines hummed softly. Yeonjae lay on the bed, her body fighting a battle that no scientific training could fully explain. Hannah stood in the corner, watching. She was supposed to be observing, taking notes, collecting data, but something different was happening. Yeonjae's pregnancy had become complicated. The doctors spoke in low voices. Words like high risk and critical condition filled the air. Hannah understood the medical terms, but she was learning something more important. A nurse named Ji-soo held Eunji's hand. "You are strong," she said. "You can do this." Hannah's scientific mind tried to process the scene. On her world, such personal contact during medical procedures was forbidden. Emotions were considered a weakness, a distraction from pure scientific management. But here, in this small room, emotions seemed to be a source of strength. Eunji's husband, Sung-min, sat nearby. He had not left her side for hours. His face showed a mix of fear and hope, something no Crichton would ever display so openly. The medical team worked like a carefully coordinated machine, but it was more than that. Each person seemed connected by an invisible thread of care, of human connection. Hours passed. Hannah's recording device captured every moment, but no device could capture the real story happening in the room. Suddenly, something changed. Eunji's condition became critical. Monitors beeped faster. Doctors moved quickly. Sung-min was asked to step back. Hannah watched the human medical team fight for two lives. The mother, the unborn child. Each action was precise, each movement calculated. But underneath was something her people could never understand. Hope. Ji-soo continued to speak to Eunji. "You are not alone," she said, words that made no scientific sense. How could words help in a medical emergency? But they did help. Hannah saw Eunji's vital signs stabilize. Her body responded to more than just medical intervention. The human connection seemed to be a form of healing she had never witnessed. A doctor named Dr. Park, not the same as her research guide, approached Sung-min. "We're doing everything we can," he said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Hours turned into a full day. Hannah's legs ached. Her recording device was full, but she could not look away. Finally, a breakthrough came. The baby was coming, not through a perfect, controlled process, but through a messy, complicated, incredibly human journey. Eunji gave a final push. A cry broke the tension. A new human entered the world. Sung-min cried. The nurses smiled. Dr. Park looked satisfied. Hannah stood frozen. Something happened inside her, something her people would never understand. Her scientific training told her to record the data, to analyze the medical process. But for the first time, Hannah wanted to do something else. She wanted to understand. The baby's first cry echoed through the room, a sound of pure, unexpected life, a reminder that some things cannot be explained by science alone. Hannah's world would never be the same. The research room was silent. Hannah sat surrounded by screens filled with data. Hundreds of human reproduction files covered every surface. Her work was no longer just a scientific study. It had become something more. She began to draw comparisons between Crichton and human reproduction methods. The differences were shocking. On her homeworld, reproduction was a perfect machine. Genetic material was selected with mathematical precision. Each embryo was designed to meet exact specifications. Traits were chosen. Flaws were removed. Diversity was not allowed. Humans were different, completely different. Their reproduction was a wild dance of chance and choice. Genetic variations were not just accepted, they were celebrated. A child could inherit traits from both parents in unpredictable ways. Some humans even chose to have children knowing they might pass on genetic challenges. Hannah's fingers moved across her research pad. She wrote notes that would shock her own people. Human reproduction was not about perfection. It was about possibility. She discovered something called genetic diversity. In human science, differences were not weaknesses. They were strengths. A population with many different genes could survive better, could adapt better, could grow stronger. On the Crichton world, such thinking was impossible. The screens showed family histories. Each one was a complex web of connections. Humans chose partners based on emotions, on love, on connection, not on genetic compatibility charts. A file about adoption caught her attention. Humans would raise children not born from their own genetic material. They would love these children as if they were their own. Some would travel across the world to bring a child into their family. This made no sense to Hannah's scientific training. And yet, it was beautiful. She found records of single parents, of same-gender parents, of families created in ways her own society would never understand. Each family was unique. Each family was valid. Hannah compared the reproductive success rates. Humans should not work as a species. Their method was too complicated, too messy, too full of variables. But they thrived. Their population grew. Their species adapted. They survived in ways that should have been impossible. Her research went deeper. She studied human genetic history. Humans had survived ice ages, terrible diseases, planetary changes. Their ability to adapt was nothing short of miraculous. A Crichton researcher would have stopped at the data, would have made a clean, precise report. But Hannah was changing. She saw more than numbers now. She saw stories. She saw hope. She saw the incredible human ability to create life, not as a scientific process, but as an act of love. Her final comparison chart looked nothing like a traditional scientific document. It was messy. It was complicated. It showed the beautiful chaos of human reproduction. Outside her research room, the world continued. Humans were born. Humans grew. Humans loved. Hannah realized something important. Perfection was not about removing differences. Perfection was about embracing them. Her people would never understand this, but she did. Hannah stood at the window of her research center. Outside, humans moved about their daily lives. Children played. Parents walked together. Families moved in patterns that seemed random but were somehow perfect. Something was happening to her. Something her people would never understand. She was changing. Her research had become more than just a scientific study. It was a journey of discovery. Not just about humans, but about herself. The Crichton believed in perfect control. In removing all emotion from important processes, reproduction was a task, a scientific procedure, nothing more. But humans showed her something different. Reproduction was not just about creating new life. It was about creating hope, about passing on knowledge, about connecting generations. Hannah thought about the family she had studied, Jadwan and Yuri with their unborn child, Yoonji fighting through a difficult pregnancy, some men holding his wife's hand. These were not just subjects of research. They were stories of human spirit. She remembered the day she first arrived on Earth. She had been so sure of her scientific training, so certain that her way was the only way. Now, everything had changed. Her research notes were no longer just data points. They were a testament to human resilience. She thought about genetic diversity. On her world, differences were removed. Imperfections were eliminated. But humans celebrated their differences. They saw strength in variation. A small human child ran past the window. He was laughing. His movements were not perfect, but they were beautiful. Hannah realized she was feeling something her people had no word for, something beyond scientific understanding. Respect. She understood now that reproduction was more than a biological process. It was an act of hope, of love, of believing in the future. Her communication device blinked. A message from her home world waited. Her research report was due soon, but the report she was preparing would shock her people. She would not just describe human reproduction. She would tell their story. The story of a species that created life not through perfect scientific methods, but through love, through connection, through an incredible ability to adapt and survive. Hannah touched the window. The glass was cool against her hand, a human gesture she was learning to understand. She was no longer just an observer. She was a witness to something amazing, to human reproduction, to human life. Outside, the world continued. Humans were born. Humans grew. Humans loved. And Hannah watched and understood. Her transformation was complete. She was ready to tell the universe about humans. The communication room was silent. Hannah sat before a massive holographic screen. Her fingers hovered over the transmission controls. The report she had prepared was unlike any scientific document her people had ever seen. She took a deep breath. This was more than a report. This was a story. The screen flickered to life. Members of the Crichton Scientific Council appeared. Their faces were perfect, emotionless, identical. They looked nothing like the humans she had studied. Researcher Hannah, the lead council member, spoke. Your report on human reproduction is due. Hannah began to speak. Her voice was different now. Softer, more human. Honored Council, she started, what I am about to share is not just scientific data. It is a testament to life itself. The council members shifted uncomfortably. They did not like unexpected things. She showed them images, not clinical diagrams, but real human moments. A mother holding her newborn, a father reading to a child, a family celebrating together. Our understanding of reproduction is wrong, Hannah said. Humans do not create life through perfect scientific methods. They create life through something more powerful. The council waited. Their faces showed no emotion. Hannah explained how human reproduction was a complex dance of chance and choice, how genetic diversity was not a weakness, but a strength, how emotions played a crucial role in their survival. She told stories, not just data points. She spoke about Yoonji's difficult pregnancy, about Jae-won and Yuri's hope, about the incredible human ability to love beyond biological connection. Adoption is not a failure, she explained. It is a celebration of human connection. Humans can love a child not born from their own genetic material as if it were their own. The council members looked confused. This was not the report they expected. Hannah showed them how humans survived through adaptation, how their messy, complicated reproduction method allowed them to thrive in ways the Crichton could never understand. We remove differences, she said. Humans celebrate them. She explained genetic diversity, how having many different genes made a species stronger, more able to survive, more able to grow. The images continued. Families of all types, children with different abilities, humans supporting each other in ways her people would never comprehend. Reproduction is not just about creating new life, Hannah said. It is about creating hope, about passing on knowledge, about connection. The council was silent. Her final image was simple: a newborn baby, held by loving parents, surrounded by hope. We have much to learn, Hannah concluded, from humans. The transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, something unexpected. One of the council members smiled. Just a small smile. But it was a start. Hannah had done more than complete her research mission. She had opened a door to understanding, to possibility. 6 months passed. Hannah stood on a stage, not a scientific conference, not a Crichton research center, but a human gathering place. Hundreds of people watched her. She was no longer just a researcher. She had become something more. Her report had changed everything. The Crichton world was different now. The scientific council had been shocked, confused, and then slowly interested. Her ideas about genetic diversity and emotional connection had started a revolution in her own society. Young Crichton researchers now studied human methods. They looked at reproduction differently, not as a perfect, controlled process, but as a beautiful, complex journey. Dr. Park, her first human guide, sat in the front row. He was smiling. "When you first came," he said to her before the presentation, "you saw us as a strange species. Now you help us understand ourselves." Hannah's research had become more than a scientific document. It was a bridge between two different ways of thinking. She began to speak. "Humans taught me something important," she said. "Life is not about perfection. It is about possibility." The audience listened. Humans from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ways of life. They saw something special in her story. Her research had shown how human reproduction was more than a biological process. It was a complex system of love, choice, and hope. Crichton scientists had started to change their own reproduction methods. They began to allow more genetic variation, to understand that differences were not weaknesses, they were strengths. Hannah told stories about families she had met, about the incredible human ability to love, to adapt, to survive. She spoke about Youngji's difficult pregnancy, about J1 and Yuri's hope, about adoption, about families created in ways no one had imagined. "We are more than our genes," she said. "We are the connections we create." The audience was silent. Then they began to clap. Her communication device buzzed. A message from the Crichton home world. The scientific council wanted more information. They were changing. Slowly, but changing. Dr. Park approached her after the presentation. "You have done something amazing," he said. "You have helped two species understand each other." Hannah thought about her journey. From a cold, scientific researcher to someone who understood the power of human connection. She had come to study human reproduction. She had learned about human life, about hope, about love, about possibility. Outside, the world continued. Humans were born. Humans grew. Humans loved. And now, the Crichton would learn to do the same. Hannah smiled. Her research was complete. Her real journey was just beginning.